Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 2 of ZeeTalksFPL. I'm just opening up my team here. So again we'll keep it simple, no fancy graphics on me right now. Just like the first episode, it's going to be, just going through the data on SofaScore and just going through the team. What I wanted to talk about in this episode, and it's because I've received these questions from some of my followers on Twitter or X, if you want to call it that, is around Manchester City players. So after the first episode where we spoke quite in detail about Erling Haaland and some factors, right, where I said that it's crucial to keep at least one midfield option in our teams open for a Manchester City midfielder, maybe in game week 2 or game week 3. So there have been some questions around that, and also there is a Manchester City midfielder that I am seeing in a lot of teams in the FPL Twitter circle. So the community, there is this one particular Man City midfielder. I won't call him a midfielder in real life, but he's listed as a midfielder in the game. So I'm seeing a lot of Omar Marmoush in some of the drafts of late. So we'll talk about him as well. Long story short, I don't think Omar Marmoush should be in a lot of teams right now. I'm not sure where people are getting the confidence that Omar Marmoush is nailed on for a start, or he has secure minutes. He's absolutely not secure when it comes to minutes, just like most players in the Man City team. I think apart from Erling Haaland, I think he is pretty much, as things stand, a sure starter in the team. He will definitely play that number 9 role. The reason why I'm saying Omar Marmoush is not really a factor is because, as you can see, right, there's just too many names that Pep can make his selection from. Obviously, in some names like Oscar Bob, I don't think he's really going to be a big factor. Why I'm saying that Omar Marmoush in particular is going to be a risk in terms of his minutes is because I think this guy Omar Marmoush and this guy Jeremy Doku, I think they're, for most parts of the season, they will compete for one spot. And I think the general feeling in the City fan base, and even if you've, not just City fans, right? I mean, if you've watched some of these Club World Cup games, for example, I think Doku really looked good. So Jeremy Doku, I think he's a player that will get a lot of minutes this season as well. So that's exactly the problem. Despite the fact that Doku has looked good in the Club World Cup, I don't think he can be considered an option either. Now, why I'm saying this is because if you look at the new look Man City, for example, right, if you go as recent as the Club World Cup, for example, and you just look at Omar Marmoush and his heat map, right? This is the heat map. I think there was just one game where in the Club World Cup where Omar Marmoush started as the number 9 when Haaland was not playing. I'm not sure which game it was. I think it was the Al Hilal game where, I think it was this one where Haaland went off at around 91 minutes, and then Omar Marmoush came on as a substitute, played about 30 minutes, and he played as the out and out number 9, had a couple of shots in that half an hour duration. So I think that's the only time he did play as the number 9, and he looked like a real goal threat with plenty of touches, as we can see from his heat map on the SofaScore app. Again, I'm using the SofaScore app to look at these heat maps and data. Excellent app. Do check it out if you haven't already, and a big shout out to these guys for this amazing app. Moving on, back to Omar Marmoush. So you see, right, a lot of the games that he's featured on, he's really playing off the left, and going back to his heat map here, and let's look at the other guy I spoke about, Jeremy Doku. Also very much dominant, on the left hand side. This is his Belgium heat map. We'll just go to his Manchester City heat map for the FIFA Club World Cup, which was, looking at this because that was the very recent tournament these guys featured in. So yeah, I think he started about 3 games in the FIFA Club World Cup, and prominently Doku sort of featured on the left hand side. So also I think talking about the FIFA Club World Cup, Pep was really looking at it as a tournament where he really wanted to give his players a lot of minutes. Obviously, one would have expected them to go deeper into the tournament, but that didn't quite happen. But just going back to the Manchester City squad, right? The way I look at it is that Omar Marmoush and Jeremy Doku are constantly going to feature in that left hand side role, because there's absolutely no way, especially in the majority of Premier League games, where Omar Marmoush will start ahead of Erling Haaland. So yes, every now and then, if Haaland is rested, then Omar Marmoush may get start up front as a lone striker. But how often is that going to happen? And we all know the answer to that. The answer is no. So I think most of the times when he features, I think Marmoush will feature on the left hand side. There will always be the risk that if he's starting a Premier League game, he will come off around the 50, 55, 60th minute mark, or if he's having a bad game, he could be just hooked off at half time. So that becomes big risk, I think, in terms of his expected minutes. So if you're really looking for the people who have Omar Marmoush in their team right now, I think there are better options. And I was quite surprised because I looked at the ownership of midfielders in general in FPL, and Omar Marmoush actually features in the top 10 midfielders in terms of ownership. I think he is at number 9, if I'm not wrong, in terms of the ownership, and that's quite surprising. That's a lot of ownership for a player who's not really nailed on in terms of minutes. So I think you should look elsewhere. Who should be the City alternative? Like I've spoken about it in the first episode. I think just hold on to that one Manchester City midfield spot, and my preferred pick would be, I wrote a big thread also a couple of months back on my X profile, on my Twitter profile, about Phil Foden and Ryan Cherki. I think these are the 2 players that I think you should really be looking at in terms of that midfield spot, or if you want a second attacker in addition to Erling Haaland. I think both Foden and Ryan Cherki, if you look at their heat maps, we'll go back to the Club World Cup tournament, right? So this is Ryan Cherki, right? Very much dominant in the central and the half space areas. A little bit of a right bias in this. The good thing is that he does not have a weak foot, so that adds that little element of unpredictability, if you want to call it, to his game, and I think that will be a factor that will constantly be in Pep Guardiola's mind as well, that he's the kind of player who can just add that dynamic factor and help bring out the best out of Erling Haaland. And here is the other guy. Phil Foden had a disappointing last season. Again, if you look at it, very, very similar heat map to Ryan Cherki. I think they're very similar in terms of their profile. And the good thing is that I think if you look at Erling Haaland as a striker, you look at Omar Marmoush and Jeremy Doku as the left-sided options, I think we may see Ryan Cherki and Phil Foden featured together in a lot of games. So in some of the games, I think one of these 2 players will feature as the number 10 right behind Erling Haaland, and one of them will probably feature as the right winger and not really holding with, but constantly tucking inside, which makes both of them a very good option in my opinion. I'm just holding on to that opinion because we've not really seen that happen in Premier League games so far. But the way I look at the squad, I think that's the most likely possibility. So I definitely see a possibility of Foden and Cherki, starting together. And I think where they start will not really matter, because they will constantly, switch positions between the games, and you'll have maybe whoever is playing right back for Man City overlapping constantly to hold with on that right hand side. That is my prediction. Those are my thoughts in terms of how City will line up. Obviously, there will be a few games where you may have Bernardo Silva featuring on the right wing, but I don't really think that's a wise option. And just from a FPL point of view itself, right? I don't think Bernardo Silva is a very good option to consider. So we'll see. I think these are the factors where I just want to hold on to the thought of Ryan Cherki as an option. I think Phil Foden is nursing a knock as of now, so there are some doubts whether he may or may not feature in game week 1. Otherwise, I would have very confidently, suggested and even picked Cherki or Foden in my team. But there is the Bernardo Silva factor, and it's not going to be a good look if he, features as one of the front three after signing so many players. So I am maybe, very much 70% sure that we will not see Bernardo Silva as one of the front three players. I think if he does feature, he should feature in the box-to-box role, hopefully. And, very, very crowded, right, even in the center of park, which also brings me to, Tijjani Reijnders, 5.5 million. Again, he's been very popular. I see a lot of my fellow content creators have been talking him up as a potential option. But again, right, I think it's wise to hold on to, even Reijnders for now, for the reason being that this man, Rodri, is set to be out for a slightly longer spell. So even Kostic, is unavailable. So that means that we may very likely see Tijjani Reijnders as, as that deeper midfield option. Yes, if you want to come with me as the devil's advocate that, there is, Nico Gonzalez who can play. But if you ask any City fan or any fan who has followed Pep Guardiola, in the last 12 to 18 months, the question is that, does Pep really rate Nico Gonzalez that highly? I mean, you and I may have, some opinions about the player, but I don't think Pep rates him that highly as things stand. Does he trust Nico Gonzalez enough to play the lone CDM role or one of the two, midfielders alongside Reijnders? I am not very sure of that. I think Pep does have that bias towards Bernardo Silva, so I think he will feature in the midfield role come the start of the season. That's my prediction, if you want to call it. I think one of as much as City fans will hate to hear this, I think one of Bernardo or Gundogan will definitely start Premier League games, which is okay. I mean, they have the experience, so maybe Pep comes from a place where he thinks that experience may be needed in some of these games. But yeah, just talking from fantasy Premier League perspective, I think Omar Marmoush is a strict avoid for me as of now, and so are other Man City midfielders. But like I've said, just hold on to, just keep your mind open that if a bandwagon kicks off in game week 2 or game week 3, you have a plan, you have a midfield spot where you're okay with moving on that midfielder to bring in, one of these midfielders. I am hoping that, it would be one of Phil Foden or Ryan Cherki, because their numbers are very, very strong, and I think they will do well, because you always want, players that can come into your team, and, you want to leave them in for the next 5 or 6 weeks at least. You want them for the medium term or the long term. So yeah, I think that's a fine option, really. in terms of, I also received a few questions that, are Manchester City fixtures really good? Just purely talking from a Haaland perspective, I think they are definitely good fixtures, right? Wolves, I think, is a nice fixture. They were poor last season. I think they just about escaped relegation, as you can see on the screen here. Finished 16th on the table. Right below them is Tottenham, and see, this is the best part, right? These two teams that finished right at the bottom today, they are the first two fixtures for Manchester City. And listen, it's all about that bias where you would like to call it confirmation bias, right? So if Man City, maybe they played some more preseason games and Haaland was on fire, for example, everyone would look at this factor that, oh, they're playing Wolves and Tottenham, and they finished 16th and 17th last season, and Tottenham don't have Dominic Solanke, they have so many injuries, they don't have Maddison. Wow, this is such a great fixture for Erling Haaland. But no one is really talking about that, and like I've discussed in the first episode, I think a lot of that comes from the bias where we've not seen Man City feature in these preseason games, so they're not really in our thoughts. But I think we need to move on, just try to be a little bit one step ahead of that bias, and keep an open mind. If I look at it objectively, I think Wolves and Man City versus Tottenham. So Tottenham, these are really good fixtures. I think Brighton is a good fixture, and just talking specifically about Erling Haaland, right? If you look at these opponents, and if you look at Haaland's record against these teams, he has a very good record. So Haaland is the kind of player, he's a goal-scoring machine. So the opponents really don't matter to him, to be very honest. But if you look, if you still sort of dive deep, you'll find he has very good numbers against these teams. I think against Wolves, he has about two hat-tricks and two Premier League hat-tricks in like 5 games. So that instantly, if you really are that kind of a guy who, looks at the past record, I think that bodes well. Man City at home, Tottenham, I think that's a good fixture. Brighton is a good fixture. The Manchester derby, I think that could be a tricky one. But listen, it really comes down to, the matchups in some of these big games, right? So you never say never. Haaland is on penalties. Maybe you don't captain him in the Man United and the Arsenal fixture, but then right after that they play Burnley, they play Brentford, they play Everton. All great fixtures. They've got Bournemouth coming up, very soon. So I think 3 really good fixtures in my opinion, and Haaland is very much captainable. See, he's 14 million for a reason, right? That's his price. Despite being a forward, he's 14 million, because the people at the FPL towers, the ones who make the decisions, they know what a certain player is capable of. It's not like he's been priced 14 million for no reason. So despite being a forward, if he's absolutely matching Salah in terms of price, I think there's obviously a reason behind it. It's backed by a lot of data, and it's backed by the kind of potential that a player like Erling Haaland has. So I think you shouldn't shy away from captaincy if you have Haaland in your team. Definitely captainable for sure. Speaking of captaincy, right, because I received this very specific question about captaincy, and it always it's been coming up after my discussion about not having Salah in the team, and everyone is like, oh, but we want to captain Salah, and what if we don't have him, and captaincy goes wrong. See, Bournemouth at home, I would agree, is a good fixture, but think of it from this perspective, that you can't just have Salah for the Bournemouth game for captaincy without ignoring the fact that all the factors that we've already spoken about, right? If you just bring him in for the captaincy, but listen, if he's not getting inside the box, if he's playing a withdrawn role, he's not really going to get points. So if you're keen on a Liverpool attacker, you can definitely captain Florian Wirtz. I don't go by the price, because see, if you look at the price, 14.5 million was the price that was set for Salah before all the the new shining toys at Liverpool came in, and the people who made those decisions were not really sure of the factor about how Florian Wirtz will affect Mo Salah or how Frimpong will affect Mo Salah. But now we've seen those things, so we have the reality in front of us, right? See, with Erling Haaland, he is going to always play number 9. He is going to have the most penalty area touches for Man City. He will have so many positives that are going in for him. Here, right now, the situation we are looking at Salah is there are a lot of net negatives that don't really make him a bad player. Yes, he will still continue to get some returns here and there, but very hard. I don't think unless obviously slot changes are his tactics in a few weeks or maybe immediately, then it's a completely different story. But from what we've seen so far, and when you include the Florian Wirtz factor, I think that tells a completely different story. So if you're really looking at this fixture, right, and just 2 days away, this is going to be the first game, so it's going to be box office, right? We are all talking about Mohamed Salah, and people like me, if we're going without him, and imagine he gets a hat-trick against Bournemouth, right? It's a scary thought, but I think that's the risk that comes with it, right? You have to live on the edge. If you are a FPL manager like me, and I play to win, right? When I'm going into game week 1, I always come from the thought process that if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. But the things that I'm seeing in front of me right now, they make sense. And if I have to captain a Liverpool player in game week 1, I'm looking at this guy. Absolutely looking at this guy. I think he's going to be central, not just for this game, but I think in the coming few weeks as well, right? He's going to be central to a lot of the things that Liverpool do in terms of the final third. So I think Florian Wirtz is very much captainable. So you're looking purely from captaincy perspective, I think I'm more than happy to give the armband to Erling Haaland. If I decide, or if you decide that it has to be a Liverpool player, I think my preferred choice will be the guy who will be in center and have the most touches of the ball. Maybe have a pop or two at goal, and it goes in. Suddenly you're looking at a 10 to 12 pointer minimum. Because with the kind of touches that he has, with the kind of involvement that he has in the final third, I think he's going to feature very highly in the bonus points as well, if he does end up getting an attacking return or 2. So yeah, that's my thought. I think Wirtz is definitely a good option. I think Palmer is a good option as well, right? If you really want to go a little different captaincy, but I think Salah is the preferred choice. Salah, even though he's the most he's said to be the most highly captained option, my preferred choice would be Erling Haaland. I think if I'm spending 14 million on him, I might as well back him with the armband, and yes, Florian Wirtz the other option. A lot of noise around Cody Gakpo as well. I've seen him in quite a few options. Again, a big difference in terms of price, right? If you go Cody Gakpo over Mohamed Salah, there's a 7 million difference, and that can do wonders for your team. Eki is 8.5 again, so you're again saving about 6 million there. Speaking specifically of Cody Gakpo, because again he's a player I've seen in a lot of teams as well, I'm not very keen on him. Because when I look at the numbers, they are not that inspiring. I know there's a factor that he is gonna play as part of the front 3, and Liverpool scored the most goals and XYZ. I think if you bring in Cody Gakpo, it definitely has to be as a double up. So if you have Salah in your team, or if you have Florian Wirtz in your team, you add Gakpo to that. I think that's the wise move, but don't expect a lot of returns. I think there will be these string of games, right, where Gakpo will maybe score 2 goals, and then he comes up with a goal again, and then he goes on a run of 3 or 4 games where he's getting goals and assists. Then he's the kind of player who's bound to go a little bit cold, not because he's a bad player, honestly. See if you can see it, just scrolling on the SofaScore app on Cody Gakpo's page, and you're looking at some of his fixtures from last season as well, right? There were these 4 fixtures. I think they look perfectly fine on paper. Everton, Fulham, West Ham, Leicester, where he went a little cold and he did not score any goals. And suddenly, if you look at the goals he scored, he actually scored against Tottenham, scored against Arsenal, had an assist versus Crystal Palace. Even before this, a lot of blanks that you'll see. So I think he's a bit of a hit and miss kind of a player, right? Can go very hot, can go very cold. But what I do in such situations is I just look at their historical data, and you just look at Cody Gakpo's data from last season, for example. He had about 23 starts, 10 goals, but again, expected goals of just 7.09. So I think he actually overperformed his attacking returns here if you really go by the numbers. Again, see, shots per game is just 1.6. Yes, there is an argument, where you can say that, okay, his minutes per game is, he's just playing 56 minutes per game because he's got a lot of substitute appearances as well, and he's started just 23 games. Okay, that's fine, I'll take that. But you also have to look at the scoring frequency, right? The scoring frequency out here is 195 minutes. So again, you're really looking at, if you factor in the fact that he is starting maybe 2 out of 3 games and he's having 1 substitute appearance, I think that should give you an accumulated approximately 190-195 minutes, and that's basically 1 goal in 3 or 4 games, and that's not really desirable. And I think last season was actually his best season at Liverpool, if I'm not wrong. So if you scroll down, I think that was the first time he scored 10 Premier League goals, and that's not a very good return, to be honest. So and the scoring frequency actually gets worse if you go to his previous season. So the season prior to that, he had a scoring frequency of 206 minutes per goal. And I think that's his level as a player, to be honest. And with all due respect to Cody Gakpo and Liverpool fans, I think that is his level. You're looking at a player who gets you a goal every 210 minutes, and maybe an assist here and there. So do you really want a Liverpool slot going to a player like him? I think Ekitike is a better option, in all honesty. And we've spoken a lot about him in our first episode, right? So for the viewers who are tuning into my podcast for the first time, if you want to go a little deeper about Ekitike and Wirtz, you can just tune into the first episode on my channel, where we have spoken quite in detail, in depth, about Ekitike and Florian Wirtz. So I think that pretty much we've covered the Cody Gakpo factor as well. Couple of things that I wanted to cover before we wrap up this episode very quickly is that there is still a lot of uncertainty about that cheap midfield spot, right? You're looking at maybe 1 or 2 spots in your midfield for that 5 to 5.5 million range, or maybe 4.5 million range. For example, we've spoken about Tijjani Reijnders already, so I will not we will not waste our time speaking a little more about him. To me, he's a non-option, so that rules him out from my thoughts. Absolutely, I don't think you should waste a midfield spot on him. The player that I like, and he has a decent ownership, I would say, at least in the FPL circle on X, on Twitter, is just getting his spelling wrong. He is there he is. Elliot Anderson. I think he is a good player in real life, but also from an FPL perspective, right? I think he's a very, very fine option, especially with the new introduction of DEFCON, defensive contributions, where midfielders like him will be rewarded for their defensive contributions. And you can see, right, as a player profile, his strength is that he excels at high pressing, so that makes him more likely to get ball recovery points, and that's a very crucial factor for players like him, because unlike defenders who will get defensive contribution points, an additional 2 points. So just to for any new FPL players, right, just to make you understand the difference between how defenders and midfielders or forwards also. I don't think forwards are really going to get those many defensive contribution points, but just the key difference is that the threshold for defenders is up to 10, but they are not rewarded for ball recovery points. So a defender will only be rewarded for, you just scroll down to the defending criteria here, they will be rewarded for their clearances in a game, the blocks that they make in a game, which you don't really expect to be very high, right? Maybe 1 or 2 blocks in a game, but there will be games where a defender makes no blocks at all, right? So that's a different conversation. But yeah, defenders get rewarded for clearances, they get rewarded for blocks they make in a game, and interceptions and tackles. These are the only 4 factors for which they get rewarded, and the threshold is 10. So if they make a combined CBIT of 10 or more in a game, a defender will get 2 points. That's the reward that they get. For midfielders, the threshold is 12. So it's not 10, it's 12. But the factor that has been added is, apart from the fact that they will be rewarded for clearances, blocks, interceptions and tackles, they will also be rewarded for ball recoveries. So that makes a player like Elliot Anderson a very, very good option for our teams, and that is why I think for 5.5 million, right, he is great value. In the last episode, we spoke about how Bruno, can be a great purchase for 9 million, because he would be pretty much guaranteed to get 3 or 4 points as his floor in at least one of his 2 games, and any assist that he gets on top of that, you're looking at a potential 10-pointer or 9-pointer, whatever. I think the same applies to Elliot Anderson as well here. I think people are really undermining what kind of valuable asset he can be for our teams, for our FPL teams. You look at his heat map, right? He is everywhere on the pitch, and this is from last season. So I really don't see a scenario where something like this that really worked for the Forest manager Nuno. This was one of the reasons why they did so well. I don't see him really changing from this approach, and if that continues, I think Elliot Anderson will, in my opinion, be one of the highest owned players in the game. Once people realize that, this is the kind of floor that you get with a player like him, I think it's really going to change the game and the way people look at midfielders like him in FPL. So yeah, we'll just dive a little deeper. Obviously, once again, the heat map is right in front of us. Elliot Anderson is everywhere on the pitch, and that is his role, right? We look at some of his numbers as well, right? Making an average of at least 1 interception per game. Very strong numbers in terms of tackles, even in terms of clearances. You look at his, every now and then he may make a block or 2, so that's another factor. But what's interesting to me is, if you can see on my screen here, the number when it comes to ball recoveries per game. It's almost 6 ball recoveries per game, and these are very high numbers. I think not many players in the Premier League can match this, apart from Caicedo. And even though Caicedo has a very similar price, but he does not have other route to points, which obviously we'll talk about Anderson's other route to points as well. But just purely speaking from a defensive contribution perspective, this is excellent, right? I think this is excellent value for 5.5 million, and this is a player that will get you those ball recoveries and tackles and everything. And I think there'll be a lot of games where we're looking at a floor of 3 to 4 points for Anderson, maybe 5 points, because remember, midfielders also get an extra point for every clean sheet the team keeps. So if you're in a game where Nottingham Forest have kept a clean sheet and Elliot Anderson is hitting the threshold of 12 defensive contributions, you're looking at a floor of 5 points, and that is excellent. Now, adding to that, if a player like him in a game where he has a floor of 5 points, you can see he has scored 2 goals last season. He has 6 assists as well, and he is on some set pieces, so he is the guy who will also take corners here and there. So you have multiple route to points. So there will be games for 5.5 million. You have a floor of up to 5 points if Nottingham Forest are keeping a clean sheet. He gets an assist, make that 8 points, and if he has a good game and he's ranking high in the bonus parameters, you're looking at 10 to 11 points in a game for just getting one single assist, and his price is 5.5 million. So I think the floor for Elliot Anderson is ridiculous, and he is my favorite for the 5.5 million spot. I know people will talk about goal threat and everything, but see, these 5-6 million attackers, even if you factor in their goal threats, right, they're normally attackers from the bottom half teams, or you're looking at maybe players like Ismaila Sarr, who is again very inconsistent, right? You're relying on them to go on a hot run of goals scored, and we saw it last season as well, that people got Sarr in their team and he blanked in all the games. So you don't really get you don't really know what you're going to get with attackers like Sarr. So I think for 5.5 million, Elliot Anderson is a fantastic bet, and he should be a lock in all our teams. I think he's a no-brainer. Even if you compare to Tijjani Reijnders, for example, I hate the fact that I keep saying no to a Man City player, but it is what it is. It is the reality. I cannot give incorrect suggestions about a player just because he plays for my favorite club, Man City, right? I think that's going to be a wrap, but just before we wrap it up, this is another player that I think, before this, right, I think there could be a potential 4.5 million gem. Freddy Potts, young player for West Ham. If I'm not wrong, he started pretty much most games for West Ham in the pre-season. He's featuring in the middle. I think he's another player that maybe he could start the season in the central midfield role for West Ham United. In terms of his nature, he's very similar to Elliot Anderson, but I think he's one to keep an eye on. If you're really looking at a scenario where you're not looking to bench boost immediately and you want a 4.5 million midfielder who you're not planning to play, and you're okay with him not starting, maybe getting a cameo appearance, I think Freddy Potts is a good option. I think he may start, but we don't really know. I have spoken to some West Ham fans and they're not very confident about him. So I just thought we can maybe touch on him. In terms of the 5 million midfielders, we spoke about Sarr from Tottenham at 5 million in our first episode. I think he's a strong option with Maddison out, and until they end up signing another player, I think Sarr he could play that number 10 role for Tottenham. So he instantly becomes an option. He has strong defensive contribution numbers as well. And lastly, I just wanted to touch upon this guy as the 5 million option. In terms of his profile, right, he again plays that destroyer role where he is going to win a lot of the ball, get in those CBID points as well. I think he's priced at 5 million. He's one of the star players, if you want to call it, for Sunderland. So he's nailed on for stars. Very similar to Anderson. If they end up keeping a clean sheet, you're looking at a floor of 5 points. Likes taking the odd free kick here and there. If he's bombing up and scoring a banger of a goal in one of the games, I think that's not bad for a 5 million player. And here you can actually bench him on your bench boost as well, and hope you get lucky with a goal or two. We'll just quickly look at his Bundesliga numbers from last season, because remember, he's not a Premier League player in the season that just went by. I think you have to take these numbers with a little bit pinch of a salt, but still it's 5.4 balls recovered per game, puts in a lot of tackles, decent clearances per game as well. But I think last season is playing a little bit of an advanced role. We'll just look at his 23-24 data instead. See if the numbers are slightly different. I think the numbers for this season, because even though the heat map is similar, he is playing a slightly defensive role. There we go. Yes, exactly, just what I thought. The balls recovered per game is actually higher from his 23-24 season. It's 6.8. That is ridiculously high. I have a feeling that maybe he can match these numbers when he's playing for Sunderland, because remember, Sunderland is not a possession-heavy top side. They are going to be in the bottom half. They're not going to have a lot of the ball, and they'll be relying on this man, Granit Xhaka, to recover these balls and put in those tackles. So yeah, I think for reasons we've just spoken about, I think for 5 million he is definitely a good option. That is that. We have, as I promised, we have covered, did a bit of digging on the Man City players, covered some midfield options in that 5.5 million bracket. Just to summarize, I think my preferred 5.5 million midfielders are Elliot Anderson definitely, and Granit Xhaka. I think these are the two players that you need to look at. I mean, in my team I've got Sarr right now, but most likely I think I'm going to go with Granit Xhaka and maybe use him as a fifth midfielder on the bench if I do decide to bench boost. Let's see. I'll most likely do another episode where I'll just reveal my final team just before the deadline, maybe later today or tomorrow, so watch out for that. And I think it's a goodbye for now. It was great talking about these points that we've just spoken about. It's a pleasure. Like I always say, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, or you can reach out to me on Twitter. My X handle or Twitter handle is SayedZeesh, as most of you would already know. You can reach out to me through Twitter as well, right? Reply to one of my tweets or hit me a DM. I am more than happy to help you out. And make sure that you hit the subscribe button, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon, and I'll make sure that there is regular content. Like I said, this is not one of your podcasts where there's a lot of fancy graphics on the screen. Maybe I'll see, right, if I can change that, we'll do that. But as of now, I feel very comfortable just having the screen in front of me and doing a very candid chat. So I hope you like it. If you don't like it, let me know in the comments below as well. And I think it's a goodbye for now. Until next time, take care.